Welcome to the Boone Podcast. I'm your host, Bret Boone. And today on the program, I'm joined by one of the best to ever play the game. He was a teammate, he's a Hall of Famer, he's the kid. Ladies and gentlemen, Ken Griffey Jr. Kenny, thanks for coming on the program.
No problem. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's your second time on the Boone Podcast. Kenny was one of the first ever bringing him back. He's recently back from the WBC. Let's talk about the WBC. Was that your first time being a hitting coach?
Uh, Not really, but yeah, really.
Not for kids. That doesn't count. Pros.
No, I mean, once you retire, you sort of help out, guys along the line. So, being on one spot, yes, but guys around the league, no.
How did it come about? Like, how did you decide you were going to do it? Who contacted you? Did you show interest? How did that come about?
I just told Tony Regans that I wanted to be the hitting coach. I said, if you got a spot for me, that'd be great. And a couple of weeks later, he called me and said, all right, I got you. So, it's always something you want to give back. And it's a way of giving back and seeing if I really like the coaching part of it. And, I had a good time.
Because we both had a ton of hitting coaches. I had your pops a couple different occasions, and we all have hitting coaches. We go through it. We know sometimes that hitting coach is speaking our language. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes we've got to figure it out. How did you prepare for it? Because when it becomes real, I mean, Ken Griffey Jr., you want to be the hitting coach. It's a no-brainer, of course. But then when you finally get all right, wait a minute. Now I've seriously got to go in, talk to these guys. How much time you spent around the yard in recent years getting to know the players that you were about to be their hitting coach?
Well,
and go ahead.
Just looked at video.
Yeah.
When they're swinging well, when they're not, and just try to pick up little things from there. So when I did see them, it was a little easier transition on learning the conversation and how they relate information.
And was it everything he thought it was going to be? Because I think about it on the surface. I think, oh yeah, I could go be a hitting coach. But then I remember how hard it is, because it seems like hitting coaches, you never get any credit. When the team rakes, that's because the team rakes. But when the team doesn't hit, it's because the hitting coach stinks. It's always been like that. It's like, I think it's one of the toughest things to do in sports. So when it got real, when you got on the ground level, I don't know. Take me through it, because I've never done it. I've done it for little kids, and I'll talk hitting. I'll talk hitting with right-handers. With lefties, I can't relate to you guys because you're on the other side of the box.
No, there's certain things that you can relate to. Getting your foot down, getting ready to hit, seeing it, tracking it, things like that. Those are all, for me, the biggest thing was trying to get these guys into a rhythm, because hitting is a part of, being in rhythm. When he puts his foot down, when do I need to put my foot down? What am I looking at? Situations, just trying to keep them, keep it small. I mean, these guys are 3 and 4 hitters for every team. It's not like I'm working with, a 7-year-old that's never played the game. So, these guys, they know what they want. They know how to prepare. So it's easy.
For you talking hitting, because it's not necessarily that I had a problem with it, but let me give you an example. For me, it was Johnny Olerud, who I played with for several years in Seattle, and we'd have hitting conversations, and he'd ask me questions, and I said, because I don't know about you being a left-handed hitter, if you had a different approach against righties, or you went a little different if it was a lefty facing. I know for me, if I had a righty with a throwing 95 with a good slider, I had a certain stance. With a lefty, I could get away with a little more. I could kind of hang out over the plate, and I didn't have to be as precise. For you, was it that way? And if you're talking to, say, a Mike Trout, I saw some video of you and Trouty were comparing swings, and I don't know what was going on in the conversation, but I saw the video. So when you're talking to a Mike Trout type player, do you bring the hitting to him for you as a left-handed hitter, and just think, okay, if I was facing lefty on lefty, that's what Trout's probably feeling, righty on righty?
No, just trying to understand, from whether it's Pete Alfonso to Tim Anderson to Mookie to Trout, even Goldie, just trying to, Trey, just trying to figure out what they're really good at and what they need to lay off of. That's the whole thing. If I can't drive the ball out the ballpark, then why am I going to try to swing at that pitch? I'm only going to try to do it just to protect with 2 strikes. And nowadays, excuse me, the strikeout doesn't really matter. They'd rather you strike out than hit a weak ground ball.
Right.
In our era, it was, he needs a little more seasoning. He can't strike out,
Right.
150 times. He needs to go down there and learn to put the ball in play. Nowadays, they don't care about that. But still trying to get him to hit the ball out in front, not let it get so far back where you're handcuffing yourself. If you really look at it, if you take a 34-inch bat and put it from the tail of the plate to the front, that's where you got to hit the ball, from the front of the plate to where that barrel is, to the end of the bat. So it's just trying to get them to understand that everything happens out front. In order to do that, you got to sit there and wait for it and see it and be on time.
We had right when the WBC ended, I had Benji Gill on. He was the Team Mexico manager, and he was explaining the atmosphere, how cool it was. It was different though. As players, as big league players, we're used to going into a city on the road, and that's our clubhouse, that's our ballpark for 4 days. We come to the yard whenever. If you want to hit early, you get there at 2:00 in the afternoon. WBC a little bit different. It was almost like, it seemed to me, just an outsider looking in, it seemed like it was like a travel ball team, because it's like, well, we can't get into the clubhouse until this game's over.
Oh, it was like that.
Was that and that's something for you. I was gonna say it's almost like the College World Series, where I'm like, Junior didn't play college baseball, but it had to be a little bit weird with all these big leaguers, all these star big leaguers. Now, this is probably a brand new experience for them as well as yourself.
Oh no, it's just like being in the minor leagues. Sometimes you get there, your bag ain't unpacked. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got to.
You got to grab the bag off the bus. It's
yeah,
it was no different. I mean, it was. Hey, we're going to be in auxiliary clubhouse, whatever, and we're going to stay there until it's done.
Did you ever play in one of these WBCs?
06.
Because I've never played in one, but I get questions from fans is, what is the WBC like? I never played in one. They said, what do the players think of it? And it made me think a little bit. And I thought, of course, if I was playing today and I was asked to play, of course I would play in it and represent the United States. But at that stage, it's spring training. We're used to getting there, and especially as a veteran player, it's a time to get ready for opening day when it counts. So some guys get into it really fast. Some guys, they want to peak at the end of spring training. It's a different mindset. You're getting 2 at bats, maybe the beginning of spring training, you're getting an AB and you're getting out of there, you're getting your work done and going home. As spring training gets going a little bit, you might take 2, 3 at bats, but they're not that high intensity games like I saw in the WBC. It was almost like a postseason atmosphere. When you first got there, how, and I could tell by the end of the series, it was serious, and these guys wanted to win. You could see there was so much passion. The fans were going crazy. But when you first got there, for first timers, how serious did the guys take it? Because in the end, it came across as real serious.
When you get there, you just, you just like first day of spring training, you're meeting everybody at a couple days. But when that first pitch is thrown, everybody wants to win. And the guys, and what you're dealing with, you're not dealing with, no-name guys. You're dealing with guys that have a reputation of being the guy. So they've got to be ready. It's not like, you know, hey, if I went 0 for 10 in the WBC, it'd be talked about. You
Right.
know, that would be the story. So these guys came ready to play. Um, you know, you're a little handcuffed because of the pitching situation, how early it is for the guys to be able to throw, 5 and 6 innings. So that was the only major problems that you run into is more on the pitching side, not so much the hitting.
Right. Um, okay, this is a little more of a junior being junior, and it's the one thing. And well, with the career that you had, it kind of comes with the territory. Um, as we get further into retirement, we're both the same age. You played a few more years than I did, but as we get further and further away, I notice it. If I walk into a big league clubhouse, the guys will come up to me, "Hey, Booney, how you doing?" If you hear my name, yeah, all the players are going to know who I am. But I'm finding as I get older, sometimes I'll walk by a young player. He doesn't know who the hell I am. Now, if I tell him my name, he'll Google me and find out who. Kenny, you're a little different. Um, People know who Junior is. You're just kind of that guy in the game, that iconic figure in baseball. When you came into the clubhouse, some of the guys you may have known, some of the guys you didn't. Are they in awe of Ken Griffey Jr. when they first get to meet you? I know your personality; it's very endearing. You put people off that have any intimidation or anything like that. But now you're with the best players in the world, and I know that they're looking at, hey, that's Junior, in that iconic swing.
No, just like I said, we just try to get to know each other. For most of the guys I knew, a couple of the guys, it was first time meeting them, but everybody was, pretty solid. It was a lot of fun being around them, talking pitching, uh, you know, asking me how I'm gonna get me out. I just said throw it right down the middle. And they're like, why is that? I said, because I got to figure out if I'm gonna hit it to left field or right field. You throw it away, I'm gonna hit it away. You throw it in, I'm gonna hit it. I'm gonna pull it. But if you throw it down the middle, that split second, I've got to figure out what I want to do with it. And they start laughing. But for the most part, they tease you a little bit.
About being old?
No, 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 no. They did get on me talk about I was the only hitting coach with his own shoe.
It's unbelievable, but I mean that's cool, and I'm sure they want to talk to you and pick your brain, and tell us. They want to hear stories from your career. So I'm sure you had a great time doing it.
Oh, it was a blast. I mean, it's something that as a player, I did it in '06. It was a little different. As a coach, because I was a player, I understood what the coaches were trying to do, so it made it a little bit easier on the transition of being like, hey, let's do this, let's work on this. What are you trying to do on this particular pitch? And just try to get them to understand that, hey, I've got to hit the ball out in front of my front knee. That's the only way that I'm going to be able to drive the ball. Uh, Anything low and away, I'm gonna try to battle it until he's gonna make a mistake. If I can sit there and battle somebody until he makes a mistake, I'm good with that. I just don't want to be, you know, in and out in 4 pitches.
Final game against Japan. I think we play this game every day. So for the player, we don't look at that matchup. But from a fan's perspective, it was Trout versus Ohtani, teammates with the Angels. Ohtani ends up striking him out. That's what the fan. It was almost like a storybook finish. Um, Watching Ohtani for the last couple of years, I've been watching Kenny. I never thought in our lifetime we'd see a pitcher and a hitter. Maybe a little bit of each, but nothing like Ohtani doing it at the highest level. He's leading the league in home runs, and he's pitching every fifth day, and he's top five in ERA. I never thought we'd see anything like that. He's stealing bases. What were your impressions, and what have your impressions been uh, watching Ohtani over the last few years? Did you think we'd see a guy like this?
Um, I think there could have been a couple guys who have done it prior. I think as everybody that played pretty much Major League Baseball was a shortstop and a pitcher. It's just the way it is because you've got a good arm, and if you're left-handed, you're probably the first baseman. As we get older, I mean, I switched when I was 14 years old, the summer of my 14th, year, going on 15, to play the outfield because I was a pitcher first baseman. They said I can do more damage uh, in the outfield than I would if I was a pitcher because I'm only going to play once or twice a week. So I think in America, that's what happens is we have to switch. We've got to figure out, who's going to play where at what age. I mean, you look at Hunter Green. He was a shortstop pitcher. I mean, he was hitting balls uh, up in the third deck at Petco Park as a senior in high school. There's guys who can do it. What he's done is unbelievable. Hands down, I take my hat off to him. But I think as we are in a copycat league, there's going to be more guys like him. Maybe not to that level, but there's going to be some guys that are going to be able to swing the bat and pitch.
Yeah, I think he's kind of.
We had Bronson Arroyo. Mike Hampton. I think Mike Hampton 1 year hit 9 home runs as a pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've got guys, but it is what it is. But you've got to let those guys be them. You can't handcuff them and say we're only going to stick you in one position because then you're taking away from who they are.
Right. I think he's knocked that door down. And I think you're right. I think because he's proven that it can be done, that's going to open that up to the young players coming up now that, hey, Shohei Ohtani did it. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Still, I couldn't imagine doing it as much as I had to put into the hitting side of the game. And then, we always watch those pitchers. They're doing their things in between starts. To have to do both of them, I thought, at the highest level, you could do it in college. Johnny Olerud did it in college. But I thought at the big league level, no, it's too tough. The level's too high. But obviously, he's proven that all wrong. And I think you're right. I think it's going to open it up to future Shohei Otanis because of Shohei Ohtani. At the WBC, and this is just in life, in spring training, to see kids wearing junior memorabilia. I was looking at there's a company called Roosevelt. You got a shirt. Obviously, Swingman is your logo. Baseballisms with Ken Griffey Jr. You got little kids wearing their cap backwards, which you kind of started that whole thing in that home run derby at Camden Yards. I still remember it. But is it a little bit strange to you? A lot of these kids, they know Ken Griffey Jr., but a lot of them weren't even born when you retired. I think it's a tribute to what you meant to this game. But is it? How do you react to an 8-year-old that's got a Ken Griffey Jr. and he puts his hat on backwards when he gets to meet you? I mean, I think it's an awesome thing.
It's great parenting.
It's great parenting. Yeah.
No, I mean, obviously, you've done something right for parents to allow that to happen in their home. So I can only sit there in awe of it. And, it's funny because I do get pictures on Instagram of kids, in the shoe, wearing the hat backwards with their dads. And, I can't thank everybody, but I am definitely humbled by the situation.
It's really cool because there's only a handful of people that get that kind of tribute. And like I said, young kids, yeah, if you were playing right now, well, that's normal. They're watching Ken Griffey on the mic on the TV. But the fact that it's years later and these young kids are growing up, I just thought it was a really cool thing. Swingman, how did Swingman come about?
Well, Michael's got Jumpman, and me being a Nike guy, I was like, well, I swing a bat, so I was like, can I just do Swingman? And they were like, well, the NBA has it as a trademark, but you can go buy it. And I was like, perfect. So that's how that started, and it just continued to flourish, and hopefully, it can continue.
Do you wear your own stuff?
Yeah.
I figured you did. You wouldn't. What do you wear most? The swingman stuff. I mean, you got. I'm checking
Yeah.
out. I don't know how many different items are out there, Ken Griffey
Uh,
Jr., but there's a lot.
in between hats and shirts and shoes, I'm probably about 6 days a week.
6 days a week. You're up. You're in junior gear.
Yeah.
All right, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool too. Um, All Star game this summer coming back to Seattle. I'm assuming you're going to be there. I'm going to be up there for the week. The last time I was there was in 2001. My team, so I'm kind of looking forward to it. I've been watching the last couple years. I know you're still in a big role with the Seattle Mariners. The last couple of years with that long drought that we had, they didn't get to the playoffs. Finally, they pieced it together where they've got a really good team. I went up there last year at the end of the year, and the city was starting to get going again. It was starting to rock. And I tell people, that at least my time there in the early 2000s, that place was rocking. And I would tell fans and people that haven't seen that in recent times until like now, is if you win in this city, man, they will come out and they will support you, and that place will be rocking. I got to see it last year at the end of the season again, and I hadn't seen it for a long time. Really cool. What about this summer and the city of Seattle putting on that All-Star game? You looking forward to it?
Yeah, it's loud. It, it's probably the loudest place that I've been when you're winning.
Yeah,
You know,
because
it's
for years we had to go. Go ahead.
it's intense. I mean, when the fans show up at when the gates open and you automatically know that there's 30,000 people in the stands at 5 o'clock, it makes a difference. It makes a difference to everyone. And for someone to say that it doesn't, they're lying.
And for years and years, we had to, I'd go to a Seahawk game, and that's electric over there. But I said, this is how Safeco, now T-Mobile, this is how it was for years. I know it hasn't been like that, but this is how it can be.
Oh, definitely. And I think every city goes in a cycle. Seahawks, Mariners were good. Seahawks were good. Now, hopefully, we can. The Sounders are good. Now the Kraken. Hopefully, we can get the Sonics back. So, because I think the Storm is one. I mean, it's a great place to play and raise a family. It's just when they support.
Now, since you've done it, would you ever want to coach or manage? I mean, obviously, your dad did it for a lot of years after he was done playing. My dad did it for a lot of years. You played for my dad. I got my brother managing the Yankees. Would you ever do it, and could they pay you enough to do it?
Oh yeah, they could pay you enough. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to do it while my kids were still at home. That's one of the things that people uh, don't realize that for us we don't take for granted. Our kids, my youngest will be 21, but prior to that, he's still in my house. I still got to be a parent. We grew up where our dads were gone all the time. So that's the hardest thing is like, people go, oh, you made enough money, you got money. That's I can't get back time.
Right.
I can make more money, but I can't get back to time. My kids get upset when we go on vacation and they are not with us. You know, how many parents can say that?
Right.
We just, spent Easter with the Tolans and in Texas, so it was all five of us plus Robbie, Bobby, and Miriam, a couple other friends, you know, got together for Easter, and it's a wonderful thing. And Trey came in from Boston. You know, the two youngest ones, Taryn and Tevin, were with me, and Melissa. We all flew there.
Yeah. And you mentioned, I mean, our childhood's very similar. Our dad's pretty much we're in the big leagues our whole childhood, and it was a it was just kind of the way it was. People ask, well, your dad was gone all the time. And I thought I didn't know any other way. I mean, he'd go on a road trip for 10 days and mom took care of the house. And that's just the way it was. And when you're a kid, that's all you know. So you don't know that dad comes home from work every day at 5 o'clock. Now you got the whole off season with him, but
You're
we got to live pretty cool lives too as kids. Not too many kids get to go to Riverfront and Veteran Stadium as their dad's work and get to hang out with them. And I don't think if I could turn it back, I understand what you're saying now, and I love spending family time with the kids and being there as much as they can, because you're right, time is of the essence, and you can't get that back. But as far as a childhood, I wouldn't trade it for anything. The experiences and
oh no,
the things
no,
I got to see, man, it
no,
was
my
cool.
my kids, they'll tell you the same thing.
Yeah,
Being able to go, when they get out of school, going on road trips, taking Trey, my thing was when Trey got 9 to take him on a road trip.
right.
And uh, it's funny because I made Sean Casey, we're in Cleveland, and I built something to Sean's room, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, because it was Trey's. And Sean was
Oh,
in front of me. And Sean was like, I didn't order this. And I'm sitting there behind him laughing because I know. He turns around, looks at me. I go, hey, you know what it is. I got to teach him somehow.
yeah.
So he was like, all right, I will pay for this. But it's one of those things that, it was a father and son trip. My dad did it with me when I was 9. I wasn't able to do it with Tevin because I retired. But, Tevin has he's gone on other trips that, the 2 older ones haven't gone on. So he's okay in that category.
When you were growing up, were you like me? Whereas when Dad told you couldn't come to the ballpark, did that ruin your day, or were you more have other things going? For me, it ruined my day. When I was 8, 9, 10, if Dad said you're not coming to the ballpark today, I'd be like, you got to be kidding me.
No, like we were only at the ballpark early, probably five.
Cincinnati, there was different rules there, weren't there? They were a little stricter than the Phillies.
Yeah, like if they won, you can come in the clubhouse. If they lost, you weren't. So like we'd come there. Opening day was early. Father and Son day was early. Husband and wife game. We go early, and then probably about 3 times a year when my mom was like, "You need to take these kids. So I got things to do. So you're taking them."
Right.
But other than that, you know, I wasn't there a lot. I mean, I think I was a junior in high school when I watched my first game from the dugout. And it was on a Saturday, I think, because I hit a home run uh, and my dad was playing with the Braves at the time. So I never got to watch a game from the dugout when he was with the Reds.
And isn't it funny too? People think, we grew up and they think, well, you must have learned a lot from your dad. I was thinking, my dad might have seen me when I was a little kid play 5 times, because we get out of school, we got a little league game. Dad's already on the way to the yard. We
Yeah,
never see him.
you're hoping that you had that first game on Saturday where he could stay there. They have a night game,
Right.
and you're right. I mean, and then for me, I couldn't hit in front of my dad for the up until like my first year in pro ball, because I was just trying to impress him. I'm like, the only one I cared about hitting a home run in front of was my dad, and didn't do it. And he started laughing. He just said, one day he said, "Hey, just pretend I'm your mom," and still didn't do it. And
Yeah.
then I finally got a hit. I was in instructional league. I hit a ball single, and he was in an RV in left center behind the fence, and he slid the window open and said, "Now, was that so bad?" And then shut it and drove off.
No, that's cool. And yeah, I mean, I think about all those times and really special and very cool. But yeah, not much time. The one thing Dad did for me was I remember he came out to my little league game. It was one of those rare days where I don't know, he's on his way to the yard, but he stopped off, and I wanted to catch because my dad's a catcher. I'm like, oh, I want to see what that catching gear's like. And I had the catching gear on. We were doing a scrimmage. He walked onto the field, pulled me off the field, said, take the gear off. You play short until they tell you can't play short anymore. And then when you can't play short, you go to second. If you can't play second, you go to third, and then you might have to be a corner outfielder. But until right now, you're a shortstop, and that's what I remember from my childhood. That's what Dad taught me.
Yeah, well, my brother wanted to be a catcher, and because he was like, baseball is boring. So I was the pitcher, he was the catcher, so it made
Yeah.
it fun. But he was like, and then he ended up playing third base, and he liked playing third base. Said at least you get some balls. He just didn't like shortstop. Then they moved him to the outfield. He was like really happy out there. But you're right. That's what they tell you: shortstop, second, first base, third base. Uh, uh, left field if you can't throw, right field if you can throw.
Yeah. I used to tease because left-handed in your situation, you really don't have that many options. You go pitcher, you go first base, and then you got to go to the outfield. But I would tease Mike Cameron, because I played with him for a few years, and I'd tease him, and I say, Cammy, you know what you are, right? And he goes, No, Booney, what am I? I said, you're a middle infielder that wasn't good enough to play the middle, so they put you in the outfield. He'd laugh at me and he'd be like, Yes. He goes, Tell me that when you're calling me off on a ball and you can't see me, I can see you coming in. But no, very, very
I'm gonna have to
very,
use that
very
against
true.
him.
Huh?
I'm gonna have to use that against him.
Yeah, just tell him. Just say, Cammy, all you are is an infielder that wasn't good enough to play the infield.
Yeah.
Well, Kenny, I appreciate you taking the time, man. Very cool.
No
Tell
problem.
Melissa hi. Tell Pops hi for me.
I will
And
do that.
always a pleasure having you on the program. And for all of us here at the Boone Podcast, thanks for joining us. And until next time, we'll see you then.